Hey there. Tonight, I invite you to step quietly into the shadows of ancient Rome, where the city's heartbeat is steady. But for most, life drifts on the edge of being forgotten. Imagine yourself lying on a bed of rough straw, the first grey light finding its way through a cracked window, as dust dances above your head in the hush before dawn. Even as you settle into this moment, know that before this night is over, you'll uncover what becomes of those whom Rome refuses to remember, their final journey hidden beneath the city's stones. If you find peace and wonder in stories like this, only then give a gentle tap to like and subscribe. And since we're all gathering from different corners of the world, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Let's make this a circle of sleepy travelers. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let yourself be carried into the gentle hush of a world both distant and achingly familiar. You wake to the grey light filtering through a cracked window, dust swirling above your head as you lie on coarse straw. The air is thick, crowded with the scent of old ash from last night's fire, and the faint, persistent tang of rot that seeps from the alley below. Every breath feels heavy, pressed in by the close walls of your insula, the tenement home you share with many others. Voices drift through the thin partitions, a child's whimper, a woman's cough, the scrape of someone searching for their sandals. In this dim space, your body aches from sleep that never quite refreshes. You pause, feeling the rough linen against your skin, and know that another day's struggle has begun. The city outside stirs, indifferent to your awakening. But for a moment, you linger in the hush, aware of your own smallness in a world that rarely notices. You shift, careful not to disturb the straw too much, knowing the dust will make you cough. The cold from the stone floor seeps up through the layers of bedding, a silent reminder that comfort belongs to others. Somewhere in the maze of rooms and corridors, someone is already at work, grinding grain perhaps, or tending a smoky fire in a cramped corner. The walls are thin, patched with old cloth and bits of wood, so every sound travels and settles on you like another layer of weight. You sit up, careful not to bang your head against the low beams. Your hands are raw from yesterday's labor, and your stomach is already a hollow drum, reminding you that food is never certain. The meager loaf you shared last night is gone, only a few crumbs left on a broken plate. Hunger is a quiet companion, always there, never quite satisfied. You gather your tunic, stiff with age and damp from the night's chill. The fabric smells of sweat and smoke, a blend that clings to you as much as your worries do. Stepping softly, you pass others curled up on mats and straw, their faces lost in shadow. There is little privacy here, only the illusion of it created by thin curtains and whispered voices. Someone mutters in their sleep, another turns over, chasing warmth that never comes. You reach the narrow landing and peer down the stairwell, seeing sunlight pooling at the bottom, pale and uncertain. Out in the corridor, you press your back to the wall to let an old woman shuffle past. She clutches a basket to her chest, eyes wary and tired. You nod, saying nothing, because words are precious in the morning, saved for bargains and pleading and the endless negotiations of survival. The air here is stale, thick with the smell of sweat and must, layered with years of living too close to strangers. As you descend the stairs, each step creaks and groans beneath your weight. You remember stories of insulae collapsing, the upper floors tumbling down in the night, swallowing whole families in a storm of dust and broken stone. It is a fear you tuck away, like so many others. But it lives in the back of your mind, flickering to life whenever you feel the walls tremble with footsteps above. At street level, the city's day has already begun. Vendors call out, their voices sharp and bright, hawking bread, olives, cheap wine. The smells hit you in waves, baking loaves, bruised fruit, the acrid tang of smoke from a brazier, and always, beneath it all, the sourness of waste and rot. The cobblestones are slick with the night's refuse, and you step carefully, avoiding puddles of things you'd rather not name. You nod to a neighbor huddled in a doorway, her eyes red from crying, or maybe from the smoke. She clutches her child, whispering a lullaby meant to keep the world's troubles at bay. For a moment, you wonder what her story is, who she loved, what she lost. But the city is a place where such questions go unanswered. Everyone is carrying something heavy, and few have time to share the burden. The sky is a pale wash above the rooftops, streaked with the promise of heat to come. You walk with purpose, though your destination is uncertain. Work, if you can find it, will be hard and poorly paid. There are days when you carry bricks at a building site until your hands bleed, and others when you wait for hours outside the market, hoping someone needs help unloading a cart. The city is crowded with men and women just like you, faces drawn, eyes wary, all chasing scraps of opportunity. You pause at a fountain, dipping your hands into the cool water. The relief is brief but real. Others gather here too, filling jars, washing faces. A boy splashes his sister, earning a sharp word from their mother. The sound echoes off the stone, mingling with the distant clatter of carts and the low hum of conversation. You drink, savoring the taste of clean water, even as you know it will do little to dull your hunger. On the wind, you catch the distant notes of a funeral song. Somewhere nearby, a procession passes, a wealthy family, their mourners cloaked in black, faces veiled. They move through the streets with solemn grace, carrying the body to rest among the city's honored dead. You watch from a distance, unnoticed, and feel the sting of envy. For the poor there are no grand farewells, no marble tombs. Death comes quietly, and the city soon forgets. The twist comes suddenly. As you turn away from the procession, your path is blocked by a group of city workers hauling a cart draped with rough cloth. The stench is overwhelming, something raw and final. They are collecting the unclaimed, those who died in the night and have no one to mourn them. You avert your eyes, heart pounding with the knowledge that in this city, the line between the living and the forgotten is frighteningly thin. You move on, shaken, your steps slower now. The city's noise grows louder, but you feel apart from it, drifting in a current that never quite carries you where you want to go. You pass a baker's stall, the smell of fresh bread nearly overwhelming. The baker eyes you warily, protecting his wares. You have no coin, so you keep walking, hunger gnawing at your resolve. In a small square, you find a patch of sunlight and sit. The stone is still cool beneath you, and for a moment you let yourself rest. Children chase each other nearby, their laughter floating above the noise. You watch them, remembering a time when you too were light and quick, when your world was not yet so heavy. A man sits beside you, silent for a long time before offering half a fig. You accept it with gratitude, the sweetness filling your mouth, brief but glorious. You share a nod, an understanding between those who have little but still find ways to give. It is these small moments of kindness that keep you moving forward, even when the world feels indifferent. As the sun climbs higher, you know you must seek work or risk going hungry tonight. You rise, brushing dust from your tunic, and join the flow of bodies moving through the streets. The city is relentless, always hungry, always demanding. You are just one among thousands, your story easy to miss. Yet, as you walk, you hold on to the memory of the fig, the cool water at the fountain, the fleeting warmth of sunlight. These are the things that give you dignity, that remind you you are alive, even when the city seems determined to forget. You wonder quietly, what will become of you when your time comes? Will anyone remember your face, your laughter, your small acts of kindness? Or will you vanish, one more shadow among many? The day stretches ahead, uncertain and unforgiving. Your stomach is a hollow drum, reminding you that food is never certain. You sit cross-legged on the rough straw that covers the floor of your cramped room. The light that spills through the slit of your window is thin, dust dancing in its weak rays. Your hands tremble slightly as you cradle a worn, chipped bowl, its rim rough against your fingers. Inside, you find the hard crust of bread left from yesterday, so dry you must soak it in a little water before you can chew. You bite slowly, each mouthful a lesson in patience, the taste of old grain and the faint tang of ash lingering on your tongue. There is no salt today, and the meal is silent except for the sound of your own chewing and the distant clatter of neighbors starting their own mornings. From the rooms above and beside you, voices drift in, a mother murmuring to a child, the creak of a cot, the cough of an old man. The walls are thin, patched with scraps of wood and cloth, and every sound seems to settle on you like another layer of dust. You hear the shuffling feet of your neighbor Lucia as she makes her way down the staircase, the wood groaning beneath her. Somewhere outside, a rooster crows, muffled by the city's vastness. The air is thick, a blend of sweat, smoke, and the musty scent of damp stone. You make the crust last, chewing each bite with care, trying not to think of how little remains for the day ahead. Your hunger is not new. It is an old companion, a shape that follows you from waking to sleep. Some mornings you find a thin porridge waiting, a watery mix, barely flavored, but warm enough to soothe. Today, there is only bread and longing. The ache is not sharp, but dull, a background hum that colors your thoughts and slows your limbs. You remember the times when there was more, a handful of olives, a scrap of cheese, an unexpected fig. Those days are rare, and you learn not to hope too much. Hope, here, is as fragile as the pottery bowl in your hands. The city outside is already stirring. A chorus of distant vendors and the clatter of carts on stone. The call of a fish seller threads through the morning air, bright and mocking. You can almost taste the fried fish, crisp and savory, but it belongs to someone else, a family with coins enough to choose their meals. The scent drifts up, sharp and oily, mixing with the ever-present smoke that curls from the hearths below. Hunger sharpens your senses. making every smell more vivid, every sound more acute. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine a table heavy with food, the laughter of people who have never known want. The image flickers and fades, replaced by the ordinary struggle of the day. You hear footsteps on the stairs. A boy, barefoot and quick, dashes past your door, chasing after the promise of a free crust from a baker's stall. His laughter echoes for a moment before it is swallowed by the city's noise. You wonder if he will find anything, or if the baker has tired of charity. Sometimes you envy the children and their hopefulness, their belief that the world might surprise them with kindness. Yet you know too well how often disappointment waits instead. The walls of your apartment are close, pressing in with the weight of other lives. You can feel the presence of your neighbors through the timber and brick, their hunger matching your own. In the night, you sometimes hear the soft weeping of a woman, or the muffled argument of a couple whose tempers have worn thin. Suffering is communal here, shared in whispers and glances, never named aloud. There is a kind of dignity in this silence, a refusal to surrender fully to despair. On the far side of the building, a window is thrown open. The morning air, heavy with the scent of damp straw and the faintest trace of rot from the alley below, rushes in. You breathe it in, feeling it settle in your lungs, rough and alive. Somewhere beyond the tenement, the city stretches in every direction. Marble temples gleam in the distance, but their wealth is as unreachable as the stars. Here, in the shadowed maze of apartments, you dwell among the forgotten. The bread is gone too quickly. You scrape the last crumbs from the bowl and press your finger to your lips, savoring the smallest taste. The hunger does not leave, it only quiets for a moment, then settles back in your belly, a familiar companion. You set the bowl aside and listen to the city. The sound of a distant bell marks the hour, its echo lingering. You wonder how many people hear it and pause, as you do, to mark the passing of another hungry morning. A sudden noise startles you, a crash in the street below, the shouts of men arguing over a spilled basket of fruit. You rise and move to the window, pressing your face to the cool stone. Below, a vendor and a customer stand in a small pool of squashed figs, their voices sharp and angry. Children dart in to snatch the ruined fruit, hands quick and eager. The smell of bruised sweetness rises, mingling with the sharper notes of sweat and dust. For a moment, you consider joining them, but pride holds you back. There is a line you have not yet crossed, though you feel yourself edging closer each day. Looking back into your room, you see how little you possess. A cot, sagging in the middle and stuffed with coarse straw. A blanket, patched and threadbare. A single oil lamp, its flame guttering low. The walls are streaked with ash from 100 nights of burning cheap fuel, and the floor is swept clean only where your feet have worn a path. Yet these things are yours, and in them you find a measure of comfort. In a city where nothing is certain, ownership, no matter how small, is a kind of victory. Outside, the city's noise grows. You hear the distant clank of armor as a patrol passes, the jangle of coins at a merchant's waist, the call of a woman selling garlands of wilted flowers. Every sound is a reminder of the life that teems beyond your walls, indifferent to your hunger. The market is close enough that you can almost taste its riches. But the gap between you and plenty is wide as an ocean. Coins are rare, and you guard them jealously, counting and recounting each copper in the dark. As the morning stretches on, your thoughts wander. You remember stories of men and women who rose from poverty, rare tales, told in half whispers, as if repeating them too often might steal their magic. You wonder if you could be one of them, if some twist of fate might lift you from these rooms and carry you into the sunlight. But the city is full of dreamers, and dreams are often swallowed by the dust. Pause, breathe, and imagine. How would you carry yourself through a day when even bread is uncertain? Would you find dignity in small rituals as you do? Or would the hunger hollow you out until there is nothing left but need? In the quiet that follows your meal, you listen again to the city's distant heart. Somewhere, a child begins to sing. The melody is thin but bright, rising above the drone of daily life. It drifts through the window and settles in your chest, a fragile reminder that even in want, beauty survives. You close your eyes and let the song fill you for a moment, letting it push back the hunger and the dust. Yet you know the day will not wait. Soon you must leave the safety of your room and join the tide of bodies in the streets, each person carrying their own burdens, each face marked by the struggle for survival. You steel yourself, gathering your thin cloak and slipping your feet into worn sandals. The straw crunches beneath you as you stand, and for a moment you look back at the room, memorizing the pattern of light on the wall, the gentle sway of dust in the air. Then you step outside into the city's living tide. The streets of Rome surge and eddy around you, the pulse of thousands of feet echoing against stone and plaster. Sandals slap, carts rattle, merchants bark in voices roughened by dust. The air is crowded with the scent of bodies and the tang of smoke from morning cook-fires. Somewhere, a brazier smoulders, the aroma of old oil and charred grain drifting through the alleyways. Dust rises with every step you and your neighbors take, swirling at ankle height before settling over your tunic and bare legs. It clings to your skin, gritty and persistent, marking you as one of the many who live close to the street, too close to the city's underbelly to ever be truly clean. You keep your head low, eyes flicking from shadow to shadow. A vendor's shout cracks through the haze, hawking yesterday's bread at a price you cannot meet. You pass by, the ache in your stomach a familiar companion. A boy darts past, his laughter bright, before it dissolves into the thrumming disinterest of the crowd. You wonder if he knows yet that the city rarely laughs back. Every step is a negotiation. You dodge a heap of refuse, broken amphorae, wilted greens, fish bones tangled in straw. The garbage is swept aside by those with nowhere else to put it, mounded near the curb until the night scavengers come. The sourness of rot sharpens the air, and you catch yourself breathing through your mouth, not for the first time today. A patrician's litter sways into view, carried by sweating slaves. The cloth curtain flutters, revealing a pale hand, a flash of gold. You shrink against a crumbling wall as the procession glides past, the bearer's eyes fixed straight ahead. No one notices you, though you stand so close you can count the flecks of mud on their ankles. Here you are invisible, a shadow among thousands, seen only when you become an obstacle to be moved. You move again, weaving through the current. The city is alive, but for the poor, it is a gauntlet. Every crossing is a risk. One wrong step, and you might find yourself caught beneath the wheel of a cart or clipped by the hem of an official's cloak. The officials themselves, draped in deep-dyed wool, stride with purpose, their faces set and untouchable. You give them wide berth, careful not to draw their gaze. To be noticed is to invite trouble, perhaps a demand for papers you cannot produce, perhaps a cuff for daring to exist in their path. A sudden commotion to your left, a dog snarls, teeth bared over a scrap of meat. Its ribs show through patchy fur, the creature's hunger, a mirror of your own. The animal wins its prize, slinking into a shadowed doorway. You pause, but only for a heartbeat. There is no room for pity here, not when hunger is a language everyone speaks. The street narrows, the sunlight squeezed to a thin ribbon overhead. Laundry flutters from windows, white sheets turned grey by smoke and city air. You pass beneath them, the cool dampness of a stray drip landing on your arm. The tenements rise on either side, walls stained with old rain and the memories of lives like yours, stacked, cramped and overlooked. Somewhere above, a child wails, the sound muffled but insistent. You imagine a mother rocking her gently, hoping the neighbors will not complain. As you round a corner, a group of laborers cluster around a well, their voices low and tired. You join the line, feeling the weight of your empty jug in your hand. The water, when it comes, is cool, but tinged with the taste of old pipes and something metallic. Still, you drink deeply, the liquid scraping the dust from your throat. For a moment, you close your eyes, listening to the city's heartbeat, a chorus of footsteps, distant arguments, the steady hum of survival. Pause here. Breathe. Imagine the coolness of water, the brief forgetting of hunger or fear. A woman passes, balancing a basket of washing on her hip, her face set in concentration. She does not look up, but you catch the stiffness in her shoulders, the way her feet avoid the deepest puddles with practiced skill. You see yourself in her, in the careful economy of movement, in the small, silent ways she resists the city's indifference. Just as you are about to move on, a commotion erupts at the end of the alley. Two men argue, voices sharp and rising. The crowd shifts, pulling away, making space not out of curiosity, but out of weary caution. Fights over bread or coin are common. Sometimes they end with a fist, sometimes with a knife. Today, it is only words, flung like stones. You watch, heart steady, knowing better than to intervene. Here, the city is both stage and audience, and you are always aware of how quickly fortune can turn. You leave before the argument can draw the attention of the city watch. Their presence hangs over the streets, rarely seen, but always felt. When they do appear, it is seldom to help people like you. Instead, they move through the city like cold wind, scattering the weak, collecting the desperate. You remember the stories of those who vanished after a run-in with the watch. The city forgets them quickly, and you wonder if anyone will remember you should you disappear. The morning deepens. The sun climbs higher, but the air remains thick, heavy with the promise of another hot, restless day. Dust settles on your skin. A bead of sweat trickles down your spine. You move through the city, a single thread in an endless tapestry, stitched and restitched by hands that never pause. The city is alive, but it does not notice you. Not really. Not unless you falter. In a small square, you pause to rest. The stone is warm beneath you, rough against the calluses on your palms. You watch as a funeral procession winds along the far side of the plaza, a rough wooden cart, a shroud, a handful of mourners. The dead are carried out quickly here, before the sun can turn grief sour. You catch a whiff of incense, meant to mask the sharper smells of death, but it mingles with the ever-present odor of ash and rot. You wonder, quietly, what will happen when your own time comes. Will anyone pause to notice? Will anyone remember? A child tugs at your sleeve, palm open for a coin. You shake your head, offering a smile instead. The child moves on, absorbed again by the city's endless flow. For a moment, you let your gaze travel up, past the shadows and noise, to a scrap of blue sky framed by the rooftops. It is impossibly far away. You rise, brushing dust from your tunic, the city's weight settling back onto your shoulders. You are one among thousands, your life measured in small acts of endurance. Every step is a quiet assertion, I am here, I exist. If you listen, you can almost hear your own heart, steady in your chest, beating in time with the city's restless rhythm. Your hands are your livelihood, calloused and raw, ready for whatever work you can find. But before the day's labor begins, you must first survive the city's indifference, one breath, one step, one unnoticed moment at a time. Your day begins with the rough scrape of straw against your skin, the faint memory of sleep already fading as you rise in the half-light. The room, if it can be called that, is crowded with shadows and the slow, persistent breath of others. You push yourself up, careful not to wake the boy, curled beside you, and the coarse blanket slips from your shoulders. Every part of you aches. Your hands, cracked and calloused, throb with the promise of another day's labor. Dust floats in the slant of early sun that sneaks through the cracked shutter. The air is thick, tinged with the sourness of sweat and the lingering smoke from last night's fire. You rub your wrists, working life into stiff joints, and listen to the city waking around you, feet pounding on stairs, a baby's cry, the low rumble of voices below. You step out into the narrow corridor. The walls are stained by years of careless touch and leaking oil. Downstairs, the street is already alive. Men with bundles hurry past women balancing jars, and the voices of sellers and buyers echo off stone and wood. Your feet find their way to the laborer's yard. There is no certainty here. Some mornings a foreman calls your name and you follow him to the docks, where the air is thick with brine and tar, and your back bends beneath the weight of amphorae. Other days you are turned away, your hope denied by a simple shake of the head. Today, luck is with you, though the work is brutal. You spend hours mixing mortar, the dust swirling up in gritty clouds, clinging to your lashes and lips. Sweat traces lines through the grime on your skin. The sun climbs, relentless. The city smells of hot stone, urine, and yesterday's fish. Your shirt, rough and threadbare, sticks to your back, and the ache in your arms becomes a dull, familiar rhythm. The foreman's voice is sharp, always watching. always threatening to withhold your coin for the smallest slip. You learn quickly to keep your head down, to move when told, to swallow the bitter taste of resentment. Sometimes the man beside you coughs, a wet, rattling sound, and you glance at him but say nothing. Words are precious here, wasted only on necessity. At midday, you crouch in a patch of shade, gnawing a crust of bread that tastes of dust and little else. Water, passed from a battered jug, is warm and faintly metallic. You drink deeply, feeling it run cold down your throat, and for a moment you allow yourself to close your eyes. The street noise softens, replaced by the distant call of a vendor and the flutter of pigeons on a nearby ledge. You remember, briefly, the stories your grandmother told, of days when your family's name meant something, when dignity was not a thing you had to fight for. But those stories are as faded as the lines on your father's hands. Here, dignity is found in small things, a straight back, a job done well, a coin honestly earned, even if it is gone by nightfall. You work because hunger is patient, always waiting. Debt is a shadow that follows you, whispering at your heels. Each task blends into the next, and your sense of self blurs with the rhythm of the city's demands. The amphorae bite into your palms, the broom wears your fingers raw, the mortar dust fills your nose until you can taste it. Still, you keep moving. The city does not pause for the weary. There is a moment, late in the afternoon, when the world seems to hold its breath. The foreman's whistle pierces the air, and you pause, muscles trembling, as the day's work is tallied. Sometimes the coin is placed in your hand, warm and solid. Other times, a careless shrug means you go home empty, with only the soreness in your bones to show for the hours lost. Today you are paid, barely enough, but enough for now. You tuck the coin deep into your belt, feeling its weight as a promise and a warning. As you leave the site, the city presses close. The alleyways are crowded with bodies, the air heavy with the scent of ash, rot, and something sweet, maybe fruit, maybe decay. Children dart between legs, chasing each other through puddles. You pass a woman with her arms full of laundry, her face set in lines of worry and resolve. A dog sleeps in a patch of sun, ribs showing beneath matted fur. The city is alive with need, and you are only one life among thousands, moving in the current. In the brief walk home, your mind wanders. What if tomorrow the foreman does not call your name? What if the coin is withheld, or a debt collector finds you before you reach your door? Hunger is not the worst of it. It is the fear of being forgotten, of vanishing into the dust and noise of Rome, leaving nothing behind but a faded memory. You press forward, comforted by routine, if not by certainty. The city's heart beats on, indifferent to your struggle. A sudden commotion breaks your reverie. A cart has overturned, spilling broken jars and oil into the street. People gather, voices raised, some angry, some only curious. For a moment, you are part of something larger, swept up in the tide of spectators. The scent of oil mixes with the ever-present dust, and you watch as a boy tries to gather the largest shards, his hands quick and practiced. The crowd disperses as quickly as it gathered, leaving behind only the sticky residue and a sense of shared inconvenience. You keep walking, the soles of your sandals sticking slightly with each step. As dusk falls, the city softens. The air grows cooler, shadows stretching long across the stones. You climb the stairs to your apartment, each tread groaning beneath your weight. Inside, the room is close and dim, but familiar. The straw mattress beckons, and you lower yourself carefully, every muscle protesting. You share a look with your neighbor, a nod, a silent acknowledgement of another day survived. There is no feast, only a bowl of thin porridge, the taste bland but filling. The voices outside drift up through the cracks in the wall, distant and comforting. A final thought lingers as you lie down. How easily a life can vanish here, unmarked and unmourned. The city does not remember the poor. Yet in the quiet moments, when you share a cup of water, when a stranger meets your gaze and does not look away, there is a fragile dignity that endures. You close your eyes, holding tight to that small, stubborn hope. In the darkness, the city's breath is all around you, and you drift towards sleep, uncertain of what tomorrow will bring. The air tastes of dust and distant ash as you step out onto the landing, bare feet brushing against the coarse straw scattered to quiet footsteps and soak up spilled water. Your neighbors move in the shadows, each shaped by the same relentless tide that carries you, hunger, toil, and the press of too many bodies in rooms never meant for so many lives. Yet, even here, you notice moments that shimmer, a nod from the old woman who lives beneath you. Her hair a wild nest, her eyes soft with an ache you recognize. She offers you a cup of water, its surface trembling as she holds it out, and you take it with a grateful smile. It is not much, but it is enough. As you pass along the narrow stairwell, your hand trails the wall, rough and pitted, still warm from the sun. A child darts past, laughter bubbling up, echoing against the crumbling stone. For a moment, the weight of your worries lifts, replaced by a flicker of something brighter. You catch the eye of a young man hauling the basket of stale bread. He grins, teeth white against the grime, and you share a silent joke about the absurdity of life here. How every loaf is hard as rock, every crumb precious. You pause at the threshold of your own room, the air thick with the mingled scents of sweat, cooked beans, and the faint, ever-present rot that leaks up from the alleys below. The walls are thin, and through them you hear the quiet murmur of a lullaby, a mother soothing her child in the language of comfort you remember from your own childhood. You close your eyes and breathe it in, letting the melody settle over your raw nerves. The city is alive all around you, but here, in this sliver of space, you feel sheltered, however briefly, from its hunger. Later, as dusk falls, you find yourself on the rooftop, surrounded by others seeking the coolness of evening air. There is a hush here, punctuated by the clatter of distant carts, and the sharp cry of a vendor hawking his last withered figs. Someone passes a jug of thin wine, the rim chipped and sticky, and you take a careful sip, feeling the burn in your throat. The man beside you, missing half an ear, tells a story about a soldier he once knew, his voice low, words drifting into the twilight. Laughter erupts, sudden and sharp, then fades into the gentle hum of shared memory. You look out over the rooftops, where smoke curls lazily into the violet sky, and for a heartbeat, you sense the city's pulse beneath your feet. Every life here is a small flame, flickering against the wind, and you think of how easy it is to be forgotten. Yet tonight, in the company of others, you feel seen. Someone squeezes your shoulder, rough palm, calloused fingers, and you realize how much you crave that simple reassurance. You are not alone. Not entirely. A sudden commotion draws your attention to the street below. Shouts rise, sharp with panic, as a mule collapses in its harness, legs tangled in the debris. People gather, some cursing, others offering help. And for a moment, the whole neighborhood holds its breath. You watch from above, heart thumping, struck by how quickly disaster can strike. It is a reminder that the line between survival and catastrophe is thin and always shifting. Night settles in, heavy and close. The air grows damp, carrying the scent of rain and the faint sweetness of crushed herbs from a vendor's cart, abandoned for the night. You return to your room, where your family huddles together on a straw pallet. The lamp guttering on the shelf throws long shadows, and you trace their shapes on the wall, trying to conjure stories from their outlines. Outside, voices drift through the window, soft, indistinct, a lullaby for the restless heart. You lie awake, listening to the city breathe. Each sound is a thread, connecting you to the lives around you. The cough of your neighbor, the creak of footsteps on the stairs, the distant bark of a dog. In the darkness, you remember the warmth of a shared cup, the laughter of a child, the squeeze of a hand on your shoulder. These are the things that matter, not grand gestures, not monuments or names etched in stone, but the quiet moments of kindness and recognition that remind you of your own dignity. Perhaps tomorrow will be harder. Perhaps hunger will gnaw more sharply, or sickness will come, or some new disaster will sweep through your street. But tonight you rest in the knowledge that you are seen, if only for a moment. You are part of something larger, woven into the fabric of the city's memory. Even if history forgets your name, these small acts endure. Pause for a moment. Imagine the feel of coarse straw beneath your fingers, the taste of dust on your tongue, the sound of laughter echoing in a crumbling stairwell. What fragments of connection would you cling to if the world seemed determined to forget you? Yet, behind every day's struggle, danger lurks in the shadows, in the silence between footsteps, in the spaces where even memory begins to fray. Danger never quite sleeps in these alleys. You feel it in the way the tenement walls seem to lean, sighing under their own weight, every stone and timber heavy with age and secrets. The air is thick tonight, dust swirling in the shafts of evening light, carrying the faintest scent of rot and ash from the bakeries and the refuse that gathers in the gutters. Your feet are sore, the soles of your sandals thin, and as you trudge home, you catch whispers, stories traded in hushed tones, not meant for hope but for warning. Someone you knew, a neighbor from the next floor, was struck down by fever last week. They say his skin turned gray, sweat pooling on his brow, and then he just stopped. There was nothing for it. The healers are too expensive, the gods too distant, and for the poor, luck is often the only coin that matters. A child's laughter rings out, sharp and bright, only to be cut short by a mother's scolding. She pulls her little one close, away from a crumbling wall where a tile once fell and nearly killed a man. You remember that, how the crowd gathered, a tight circle of faces, some curious, some afraid. The man's body lay twisted, his tunic stained and dusty, the life gone from him as quickly as a candle snuffed by the wind. No one remembers his name now. He was gone by morning, swept away by men who spoke little and wore the smell of the burial pits. This is how the city forgets its poor, one body at a time, quietly, efficiently, as though life here is nothing more than a shadow that passes through, leaving barely a trace. You step over a puddle, the water tinged with the oily shimmer of refuse. Somewhere nearby, a brawl has broken out, shouts, the thud of fists, a woman's scream. You keep your head down, eyes fixed on the ground. It is safer not to see, not to know, when violence comes. The city is old and restless, and you have learned to move through it like a ghost, invisible, unremarkable, hoping the dangers will pass you by. Every day is a negotiation with fate, a silent plea for just one more sunrise. The insula you call home looms ahead, its facade pitted and stained, the smell of damp straw and old cooking fires hanging in the air. You climb the stairs, each step creaking, the boards beneath your feet soft with age. There are voices behind thin walls, arguing, laughing, sometimes just the heavy silence of exhaustion. You listen to your own breath, feel the roughness of the door as you slide the latch closed behind you. Inside, the room is small, barely enough for a straw pallet, a battered clay lamp, and the few things you own. Dust gathers in the corners, and the air is close, thick with the mingled scents of sweat and smoke. You lie down, letting your body sink into the coarse straw, and stare at the ceiling, where cracks spider out like the branches of a dead tree. You think of the neighbor lost to fever, the man crushed beneath the wall, the bodies that vanish before dawn. The city swallows its dead quickly, and with little ceremony. Sometimes, in the quiet, you wonder what will become of you when your luck runs out. Will anyone remember your name? Will there be a prayer, a candle, even a whispered word? Or will you too be bundled away before the sun rises, carried through the streets and left in a pit at the city's edge? The poor do not get tombs or marble, only a patch of dirt and the hope that someone, anyone, might grieve for them. A sudden cough shakes your body, a dry, rasping sound that echoes in the silence. You press a hand to your chest, feeling the thinness of your ribs beneath calloused fingers. Illness is always near, waiting for a moment's weakness. The crowded air in the insula carries more than the voices of your neighbors. It brings the invisible, the deadly, and you have seen how quickly a simple cough can turn to something worse. You remember the feverish eyes of the boy who once shared your cot, how he faded in just a few days, his breath rattling like pebbles in a jar. No one had the means to save him, and in the end, all that was left was his silence. Outside, footsteps echo in the stairwell, heavy, then fading. Somewhere, a baby cries. You close your eyes and try to remember the last time you felt safe. But the memory is distant, blurred by time and hunger. Your dreams are restless, filled with images of falling beams, dark pits, and the silent passage of men who come at night to carry the forgotten away. Pause, breathe, and imagine. The city at night. The air cool, but carrying the smell of smoke and rot. The distant clatter of wheels on stone. Each sound is a reminder of the world's indifference, but also of your own small persistence. You are still here, still breathing, still clinging to the thread of life amid all the uncertainty. You sit up, listening to the night. The city does not sleep. Somewhere, a funeral torch flickers, carried through the darkness by those who mourn, or perhaps by those simply doing their duty. There are no grand processions for people like you. The wealthy have their mausoleums, their names carved in stone, but for most, death is a quiet thing, witnessed only by the moon and the stray dogs that haunt the edges of the burial grounds. You wonder, not for the first time, what dignity means in a place like this. Is it found in a kind word, a shared loaf of bread, the gentle touch of a friend's hand? Or is it something deeper, something that survives even when the world turns its face away? Perhaps dignity is the act of remembering, of refusing to let the forgotten fade entirely. As you drift towards sleep, you promise yourself that you will remember the ones who vanished, the neighbor with the quick smile, the child who ran too close to the edge, the man whose name you never learned. And as the city settles into its uneasy hush, you feel the weight of uncertainty pressing close. You do not know what tomorrow will bring, or when your own luck might falter. But for now, you are present, alive, and that, in this world of dust and shadows, is enough. The question lingers, soft but insistent. What happens when your luck finally runs out? As dusk settles, you return to the dim confines of your insula. The city's breath still heavy in the air, and the journey of survival continues. You let your body sink into the brittle straw, feeling each reed press against your back. The mat crackles softly beneath you, a thin barrier between your tired bones and the cold, uneven floor. Pale light still seeps through the wooden shutters, fractured into lines by grime and age, but the deepening dusk is swallowing what little remains. The insula around you has settled into its nighttime hush. If you listen, you can almost hear the heartbeat of the city, muffled by brick and dust. The air is thicker now, heavy with the scent of stale smoke, sweat, and the faintest trace of rot drifting up from the lower floors. You draw your knees to your chest beneath the threadbare blanket, trying to gather every shred of warmth. Your skin prickles from the chill, but you resist the urge to shiver. The walls are thin. Sometimes you hear your neighbor's cough or the soft whimper of a child. Tonight, you hear the hush of distant voices through the plaster, words blurring together, rising and falling in gentle waves. There is a comfort in knowing you are not entirely alone, even as loneliness presses in at the edges. A single oil lamp flickers near your feet, its flame struggling against the draft. The smoke winds upward, painting faint shadows on the ceiling. You watch the patterns shift, shapes blooming and fading, and for a moment your mind drifts. Memories come unbidden. The rough laughter of friends in the marketplace, the taste of a stolen fig, a mother's gentle hand smoothing your hair. Each memory is edged by hunger, by longing, by a sense of things lost. Your stomach aches, a dull, familiar gnawing. You ate little today, saving what you could for tomorrow. Bread gone stale, beans boiled until they split, water that tastes faintly of clay. You wonder how many others in these cramped rooms feel the same emptiness, waiting for morning to bring work, or luck, or at least distraction. Somewhere, A baby cries out, sharp and sudden, then is soothed back into silence. The city above is never truly still. Feet scuff along the corridor outside, and the faint clang of a distant bell marks the passing of time. You imagine the streets beyond your walls, the moon glinting on worn cobblestones, the air thick with dust, and the faint tang of ash from a baker's dying fire. Somewhere, a dog barks, its voice echoing off stone, then fading. Rome's pulse beats on, indifferent to the struggles of those packed tightly within its belly. You close your eyes, hoping for sleep. But rest comes slowly, if at all. Each time you drift near the edge, a thought tugs you back, a half-remembered debt, a friend who never returned, the shadowy figure you glimpsed slumped in a doorway at dawn. You have seen what happens to those who slip through the cracks. The city is vast, but it is easy to disappear. A sudden draught slips through the shutter, carrying with it the scent of rain on far-off stone. You open your eyes and stare into the darkness. In this moment, your world is reduced to a few square feet, coarse straw, a thin blanket, the taste of air thick with old smoke. Outside, the city's lights flicker and fade, swallowed by night. You remember the stories whispered by older tenants, how a cough could become a fever, how a slip on the stairs might end in silence. There are no physicians for people like you, no healers who come for a handful of copper. Illness lingers in the dust and cold, waiting for a moment of weakness. You wrap your blanket tighter, as if you could shield yourself from what you cannot see. Somewhere in the distance, laughter rises, brief, bright, then gone. You imagine who it might be. A group of revelers spilling out from a tavern, their faces flushed with cheap wine, or perhaps children slipping through alleys, chasing shadows. For a heartbeat, you wish you could join them, feel the warmth of company, the illusion of safety. But your limbs are leaden, your eyelids heavy. Fatigue seeps into your bones, a quiet ache that never fully leaves. You try to count your blessings, small though they are. A roof above your head, however leaky. Blankets, even if threadbare. The promise of another day, uncertain as it may be. You know others are not so lucky. You have seen them, wrapped in rags, huddled in doorways or beneath the arches of bridges, their faces turned away from the world. It is easy to become invisible here. The darkness deepens, shadows pooling in the corners of your room. You listen to your own breathing, slow and shallow, and wonder how many more nights you will weather. Death feels close, always hovering just beyond these thin walls. Sometimes you sense it in the silence that falls when a neighbor's voice goes unheard for days, or in the sudden hush that settles after a commotion in the street. Here, life is fragile, and endings come quietly. Still, you hold on. You gather your blanket around your shoulders, grateful for what little warmth you have. You press your hand to your chest, feeling your heartbeat, a small, stubborn rhythm defying the night. Outside, Rome breathes in its sleep, vast and indifferent. But here, in this cramped room, you persist. Pause for a moment. Breathe in the dusty air. Imagine the rough texture of straw beneath your fingertips, the heavy scent of old ash lingering in your nostrils. Imagine the weight of fatigue pressing you into the mat, the ache of hunger twisting in your belly. You are here, alive, in a city that forgets the names of the poor, but not their struggles. Do you ever wonder how many people throughout history have lived and died without leaving a mark? Tonight, you are one of them. Your life is quiet. Your suffering unseen by those who walk above you in marble halls. Yet you endure, and in that endurance there is dignity. The world may not remember your name, but for a moment, here, now, you are remembered. Outside, the city's pulse softens. The distant voices grow fainter. You feel the edge of sleep drawing near, blurred by hunger and memory. Tomorrow will come, cold and uncertain, but tonight you wait, folded into the darkness, grateful for what little you possess. Somewhere beyond the walls, death waits patiently. But for now, you claim another night in Rome. You wake before dawn, your bones aching with the memory of labor, your body heavy as if the city itself presses down upon you. The air in your small, cramped room is thick with the scent of old straw and the faint tang of mildew. Somewhere, a neighbor coughs, a deep, rattling sound that echoes off cracked plaster walls. The world is still grey, the city not yet fully awake, but you are already aware of the ceaseless movement beyond your shutter. Dust drifts in the first light, swirling in the narrow beam that slices across the floor, settling on everything, even your skin. You dress slowly, each movement deliberate, careful not to disturb the brittle quiet. Outside, the city's heartbeat grows steadier. A distant clatter of carts, the low murmur of voices, the bark of a dog. You step into the corridor, feet bare, feeling the cool grit beneath your toes. The stairwell is dim, the only light a flickering oil lamp that struggles against shadow. You descend, passing doors behind which others sleep or whisper, or simply wait for the day to begin. On the street, the air is already crowded, thick with smells, roasting grain from a baker's oven, sharp urine in hidden corners, the ever-present smoke of charcoal. You cross the city with the others, laborers, mothers, children clutching their fathers' tunics, each a blur of movement in the half-light. Your hands are rough, nails bitten down, every joint marked by work. But today, your body feels weaker than usual. Each step is an effort, and a feverish heat prickles under your skin. You tell yourself it will pass, that you cannot afford to rest, but the city does not care for your protests. Later, as the sun mounts, you find yourself pausing more often. The world blurs at the edges, voices become distant, and the press of bodies around you is overwhelming. You lean against a wall, feeling its gritty surface against your cheek, the stone cool but unyielding. Someone glances at you, their eyes meeting yours for a brief moment, curious, maybe concerned, but soon swept away by their own needs. There is no time for sympathy when survival is a daily negotiation. By midday, your strength fails. The fever that simmered all morning now surges, and you sink to the ground beside a pile of discarded amphorae. The noise of the city recedes, replaced by the internal roar of your own breath, shallow and strained. You think of your family, those here, those gone, and those whose faces you barely remember. The world narrows to sensation, the scratch of straw matting beneath you, the sour stink of sweat, the distant crackle of fire somewhere far off. The dust settles on your lips, gritty and bitter. A neighbor finds you there, your skin clammy, your eyes unfocused. She kneels, murmurs a prayer you only half hear, and dabs your forehead with a rag that smells faintly of herbs. There are no physicians for people like you. If you are lucky, someone will bring water, perhaps a crust of bread. But the city's rhythm does not pause for a single failing life. As your breath grows shallow and your body slackens, the world simply moves on, wheels and feet and voices blurring into a single, ceaseless hum. When the end comes, it is quiet. No grand farewell, no solemn procession, no ritual to mark the passing. Your neighbor closes your eyes, her touch gentle, and steps back into the current of the street. There is no time for grief, only a brief moment of stillness before necessity returns. You are not alone in this silence. Others have gone before you, others will follow, each departing with little more than a whisper. Now, the city's slaves arrive, men tasked with what no one else will do. Their clothes are plain, their faces unreadable, hands marked by the same hard labor that shaped your own. They lift you with practiced care, joining you to a handful of other bodies gathered in the shade of a crumbling wall. There is no distinction here, no difference between young and old, between those who died of fever and those lost to accident. The only commonality is poverty, and the city's quiet need to clear its streets. Your body joins a silent procession, moving through alleys choked with refuse, past children at play and vendors calling out the day's price for olives or bread. The sun is low again, shadows lengthening. With each step, the city's noise fades, replaced by a softer chorus. The distant chirp of crickets, the shuffle of sandals in dust, the gentle hush of wind through dry grass. You are carried beyond the city's edge, past the last of the crowded tenements, to a place where the land is raw and unadorned. Here, on the outskirts where Rome's walls give way to open fields and tangled scrub, the ground is broken and uneven. The earth is pocked with shallow pits, some newly dug, others already filled and covered with a thin layer of soil. The smell is sharp, a mix of ash, damp clay, and the unmistakable presence of rot. Far from the marble tombs of the wealthy, there are no markers here, no names, no carved epitaphs, only the memory of footsteps in the dust and the low murmur of voices, fading quickly into silence. At this moment, pause. Breathe. Imagine the weight of the sky above you, the press of earth below. Your life, once woven into the fabric of the city, is now part of its forgotten outskirts. There is no monument, no legacy, but the memories held by a handful who knew your face, your voice, your laughter on a rare day of ease. You become anonymous, joining the many who built, cleaned, and fed the city, but left behind little more than worn footprints and a scattering of dust. Yet, in this quiet, something lingers. The dignity of your struggle, the small acts of care exchanged in crowded rooms, the silent prayers whispered over fevered bodies, these things are not written in stone, but they endure in the texture of the world, the way the dust settles after footsteps, the scent of ash carried on the breeze, the memory of distant voices at twilight. If you listen closely, you might sense the presence of those who came before, and those who will follow, all woven together in the hush that follows the end. Somewhere in the city, A child asks where you have gone. A neighbor lights a small lamp, its glow flickering against the gloom. Life continues, indifferent yet persistent, as it always has. The city forgets, but in quiet corners memory endures, not as a name etched in marble, but as a feeling, a fleeting warmth, a hope that even the least noticed life carries a spark worth remembering. In the burial pits beyond the city's edge, you were laid among many, without a name or marker. The city is behind you now. The familiar rumble of carts and the high, thin shouts of vendors fade, replaced by a hush broken only by wind sifting through wild grasses. You are no longer walking. There is no weight in your limbs, only the memory of it. Someone else carries you, rough hands, steady yet impersonal, bearing you with the same care reserved for a sack of barley or a torn cloak. The world narrows to the darkness behind your closed eyes, and the journey to the edge of Rome is measured not by footsteps, but by the shifting patterns of scent and sound. The streets grow quieter as you are taken farther from the city's heart. Stones rattle beneath sandals. A dog barks, far off, then falls silent. The air smells different here, less of smoke and sweat, more of distant earth, of things growing and decaying in equal measure. The city's tenements, with their crowded, shouting life, are gone. In their place, the low, uneven mounds beyond Rome's walls and the yawning pits waiting for those who leave no coin for a tomb. Pause, breathe, and let yourself feel the change. The dust here is finer, almost silken, as it settles on your skin. There are others, of course. You sense them more than see them. Bodies wrapped in cheap cloth, some little more than a shroud, others bare beneath the sky. The men working here do not speak. Their movements are practiced, brisk but not cruel. They know this ritual well. A shovel bites into the earth. A crow caws, its voice sharp against the muffled world. You join the line of the forgotten, pressed shoulder to shoulder in the cool shadow of the burial pit. The ground is cold, and dampness clings to the air, mingling with the heavy scent of ash and rot. Every breath is thick, as if the city's memories themselves have settled here, too heavy to rise again. There is no name spoken for you, no carved stone, no oil lamp left burning. Your passing is marked only by the soft thud of earth as it covers you, grain by grain. The men do not linger. They have other work, other bodies to lay to rest. And yet, in this moment, as the city turns away, you find a strange kind of companionship in the closeness of the others. Bones and lives stacked together, stories pressed into silence. You are not alone. No one here is truly alone. Time slips, loosens its grip. The city above continues, indifferent. Children chase each other across the stones, their laughter rising above the clamor. A baker dusts flour from his arms and looks toward the horizon, never once thinking of the fields of the dead. The world forgets you quickly. Memory is a luxury for those with means. A name scratched into marble, a painted portrait, a coin pressed into the palm of a mourner. For you, memory is the hush that follows the last spadeful of earth. It is the dust that drifts, settling gently over your resting place. But in this silence, there is a dignity that cannot be taken. The city's poor are the mortar between its stones. the laughter that echoes through the alleys, the hands that carry water, sweep the forums and build the walls. These are the tasks that hold Rome upright. Even in death, lying nameless beneath the earth, you are part of the city's heart. Your bones mingle with countless others, a foundation as real as any monument. The city rises and falls on the backs of those who are never remembered. A rat scurries nearby, its tiny feet whispering across loose pebbles. The wind stirs, carrying the faintest trace of incense from a distant funeral. Someone wealthier, someone seen. For a moment, you wonder what it would feel like to be mourned, to have your name spoken aloud, to have even a single candle flickering at the edge of the dark. Would it change anything? Here in the cool hush of the burial pit? Or does dignity persist, quiet and invisible, long after memory is gone? As the days pass, the earth presses closer. Rain seeps in, softening the soil, drawing the city's scents down into the depths. The voices of the living fade, replaced by the slow, patient shift of the ground and the gentle settling of dust. You become part of the city's foundation, a silent presence, woven into the story of Rome, even as that story moves on without you. Now, centuries later, the stones of Rome stand witness. Tourists walk the old roads, their footsteps echoing above the bones of the forgotten. They marvel at arches and columns, never knowing the names that lie unseen beneath their feet. Yet, for a brief moment, as the sun lingers on broken marble and the wind carries the scent of distant fires, the past feels close. Pause. Breathe. Imagine. What does it mean to be remembered? What does it mean to be forgotten? The dust settles gently over all, but dignity endures, quiet and unyielding, at the heart of the city. Centuries have slipped by, almost unnoticed, yet the stones of Rome remember you. Their surfaces are worn smooth by the shuffling feet of thousands of lives, each one as fragile and necessary as yours. Sometimes, in the hush before dawn, you might imagine you can hear their echoes, the low murmur of voices, the scrape of sandals, the laughter that flickers and fades like candlelight. Your story is pressed into the very dust that fills the cracks between these stones, dust that clings to the hems of tunics and settles in the folds of rough wool. You wake, just as you always did, to the gritty taste of air heavy with the scent of ash. The cramped room around you stirs with the breath of others, your family, or perhaps strangers who share the narrow space above a bustling street. The straw beneath you is coarse, scratching against your skin, and the blanket offers little comfort. Light filters in through a cracked shutter, painting faint stripes across the clay walls. Already the city is alive, a distant clang of metal, the shout of vendors, the insistent bray of a donkey somewhere below. You push yourself up, careful not to wake the child nestled at your side. Your feet find the floor cold and uneven. Outside, the corridor is a narrow canyon of shadows, filled with the smells of yesterday's cooking and the sharp tang of urine. There is no privacy here, no quiet moment to gather yourself. Every day begins in the middle of someone else's noise. Down the stair, you join the river of bodies moving toward the street. The air is thick, crowded with the heat of close quarters and the sharp edge of smoke from last night's fires. Your stomach aches, empty but familiar, and you think of the day's work ahead, whatever you can find. Maybe carrying water to the baths, or hauling rubbish for a coin. There is no certainty, only the steady grind of need. The city itself feels endless. Buildings rise in layers, stacked so tightly that the sky becomes a narrow ribbon overhead. Laundry flutters above you, bright against the grey stone. In the market square, voices blend together, pleading, bartering, haggling for a handful of grain or a crust of bread. You sense how invisible you are in this crowd, how easily the world looks past you. Yet you persist, moving through the press of bodies with quiet determination, one among many, each with their own hidden aches and hopes. Pause now, breathe in the air that swirls with dust and the faint sweetness of rotting fruit. Imagine the weight of a day spent unseen, your hands stained with labor, your dignity tested in small, private ways. The city demands so much of you, yet gives so little in return. Still, you find moments of grace, a neighbor's smile, the warmth of the sun on your back, the rare pleasure of a story traded over a shared meal. These are small things, but they are yours. Sometimes you catch yourself wondering if anyone will remember you. Not just your name, but the feel of your life, the way the coarse straw scratched your legs, the sound of your mother's voice at dusk, the dreams that flickered in your mind before sleep took them away. You see the grand monuments rising on the hills, marble and gold, that will outlast 1,000 lives like yours. Yet your own story is written in softer ways, in laughter, in sacrifice, in the quiet endurance of each day. The world is not gentle. Death comes often and without warning. You have seen neighbors vanish, illness taking them in the night, or a misstep on a rickety stair that ends in silence. For the poor, there are no carved stones, no grand processions. When your time comes, your body will be carried away to a common pit beyond the city walls, mingling with the countless others who passed unnoticed. The smell of earth and decay hangs thick in those places, but above ground, life moves on, indifferent and bright. Here is the twist that lingers. Centuries from now, the stones will still stand, but your name will be gone. Yet, in every step worn smooth, in every handprint left in mortar, something of you remains. Your dignity is not erased by poverty, nor is your memory lost so long as someone pauses to imagine your life. Perhaps the truest legacy is this quiet endurance, this refusal to vanish without leaving a trace in the dust and air. Let yourself reflect for a moment. In your own world, comfort is often assumed, and the struggles of the forgotten are easy to overlook. But kneel in the dust of Rome, and you feel it, the pulse of all those who came before, their fears and hungers not so different from your own. What would it mean for you to be remembered, not by monuments, but by the shared breath of a city and the persistent echo of lives lived with quiet courage? Pause, breathe, and listen. The city stirs beneath your feet. The divide between past and present thins, and for a moment you sense all those who came before you, brief, unseen, but vital, just like you. The story continues, not in marble, but in memory, in empathy, in the gentle act of imagining lives that might otherwise fade away. The sun is sinking behind the rooftops of Rome, the city's edges blurring into a haze of golden dust. You stand at the threshold of your narrow tenement, the coarse straw of your bedding still caught in your hair, the residue of another day pressed into your skin. The air is thick with the mingled scents of ash from distant hearths and the slow, steady rot that rises from the alleyways. You pause for a moment, letting the crowded sounds of the street wash over you. Vendors bargaining in rough voices, a child's laughter echoing and vanishing, the weary shuffle of feet on worn stones. You have lived this day as you lived every other, your labor forgotten almost as soon as it is spent, your name never written in marble or ink. The city, so grand in its monuments and its endless marble, has no memory for the poor. But here, in the softening light, you remember yourself. You remember the small, defiant acts that make up a life, sharing a crust of bread with a neighbor, offering a smile to a stranger, finding a brief moment of rest on a patch of cool stone while the world rushes past. Dust settles on your arms and legs, clinging like a second skin. You taste it as you breathe, dry and gritty, a reminder that you belong to this place and time, even as it forgets you. The voices around you rise and fall, distant and muffled, as if you are already a memory fading at the day's end. You feel the ache in your muscles, the slow burn of hunger in your belly, the longing for something softer than straw to cradle your head at night. Tonight, like every night, you wonder what will remain when you are gone. The city's poor are buried in common pits, their names lost, their stories untold. There are no mourners lined at the gates, no songs sung in your honor. Sometimes, the only witness to a life's passing is the dust itself, swirling gently in the last light. Yet even here, you find moments of dignity. You notice the warmth of another's hand, the brief flicker of hope in someone's eyes, the shared silence that says, "I see you and you matter." Take a breath. Let the air fill your chest, heavy with the sense of oil, sweat, and smoke. Imagine the city's heartbeat under your feet, steady and indifferent. Your life, so easily overlooked, is woven into the fabric of this ancient world. Every step you take leaves a faint impression in the dust, soon erased, but for a moment undeniably real. As darkness settles, you settle too, drawing your thin cloak tighter against the night's chill. The city's noises fade, replaced by the soft huff of your own breath and the distant crackle of a fire somewhere unseen. You think of the day's small triumphs, the meal you managed to earn, the brief moment of laughter shared with a friend, the comfort of knowing you survived another day. These are not victories Rome will remember, but they are yours all the same. Now, in this quiet hour, you are invited to remember, not just your own life, but all those who have vanished into silence. Picture the faces of those you have known, their names whispered only in passing, their stories nearly lost. Imagine yourself among them, the dust on your skin, the hope in your heart, the longing for dignity that never quite fades. In this act of remembrance, you do something powerful. You help preserve these forgotten lives, giving them a place in the world's memory, if only for a moment. Pause if you wish. Let your thoughts drift through the narrow streets, past the crowded rooms and the silent burial pits. Feel the weight of history pressing down, but also the quiet strength that comes from being seen, even now. In honoring these lives, you honor your own capacity for empathy, for connection, for bearing witness. You become part of a chain that stretches from ancient Rome to now, a chain of memory, of dignity, of quiet defiance against oblivion. The city may forget, but you do not. In this small, gentle act of remembrance, you offer a gift that is both ancient and ever new, the gift of seeing, of holding space for those whom history nearly left behind. And so, as the night deepens, you rest. The dust settles once more, the air grows still, and the distant voices fade. Yet something endures, a memory, a whisper, a promise that even the poorest life is worthy of being known. In the end, dignity is not found in monuments or marble, but in the silent act of remembering. Thank you for listening, for bearing witness, for giving voice to those who once walked these same dusty streets.